Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio, and I know we've already looked at a couple of Tag Team GXs today, but look, there's another one. And I know I'm on my way to Bristol Regionals, and I don't really have time to do this, so I'm recording this audio in my car halfway to Bristol, because, you know, how else am I going to record it? Ladies and gentlemen, we have got Deoxys and Espeon Tag Team GX. And I'll tell you something for nothing. It's not quite as good as Umbreon. Now, I do, of course, mean that Espeon as a Pokemon is not as good as Umbreon. But I also mean that this card is not as good as Darkrai and Umbreon. But it's still kind of interesting, and we still need to give it a gander. Now, if we start off having a little bit of a look at the basics, 260 HP is slightly low. It's 10 less than Darkrai and Umbreon. It's not ideal. The weakness of Psychic is fine. Psychic's not a big type at the moment. But then again, I did show you Mew and Mewtwo Tag Team GX. That looks incredibly good. And if that becomes as good as we think it might be, that could be problems for this. Retreat cost of 2 kind of sucks, and being a Psychic Pokemon means you do have access to stuff like Spell Tag, which is quite nice, but far more importantly, it means you can accelerate energy using Malamar. That's nice. That's where we get all of our energy from. Speaking of places we get stuff, we had our translation from the lovely David Hochmann over at RappelmannTCG. He's translated all these new Tag Team GXs for us because David is awesome. So, what does it actually do? While the first attack for 1 Psychic, 2 colourless energy does 10 damage, plus 30 more for each of your benched Psychic Pokemon. And this creates some issues. Now, in terms of the energy cost here, we won't have double colourless energy, that will have rotated. But we will still have Malamar. Malamar can get the energy on. Malamar is good, we like Malamar. So the energy cost isn't a huge problem as long as you're willing to pop it in a Malamar deck. But you've got to have a bench full of Pokemon. Now, if you have a bench full of Pokemon and all of those Pokemon are Psychic Pokemon, then you're rocking 160. And we saw this with Morile GX. It did 10 damage plus 30 for each of your opponent's bench. 160 is just a little bit lower than we would like. It's not terrible. And against non-GXs, you're going to be absolutely golden. The vast majority of non-GXs will go down here. But you're not going to get many GXs. Now, if you can find something that's weak, for instance, Mew and Mewtwo, then yes, that one will go down. And if anybody ever finds a way to make Machamp and Marshadow good, that will also go down. But if you're not hitting for weakness, it's not ideal here. 160 is fine. It's okay, but we're not 100% entirely in favour of it. You're basically in weakness and non-GX territory. And look, that's fine, but you're going to be in a whole bunch of matchups going, oh, your Pikarom, your Reshiram and Charizard. I can't do that much damage, and you're not weak, so let's have a 2-hit KO fest. Now, one of the saving graces for you here is that Choice Band has rotated out, because if not, you would be miles away from one-hit KOing Reshiram and Charizard, while they would, with a Choice Band, be able to get a fairly casual one-hit KO on you. But you're still being outmatched. Now, you could argue here that most of the Tag Team GXs can't one-hit KO each other. Pikarom's generally doing 150, for instance, and Reshiram and Charizard in a post-Choice Band world is doing 230, but even bearing all that in mind, it's a little bit lower than I'd like. To be fair, Pikarom can get a one-hit KO, but they've got to use all 4 of their Electro Power in one go. Doesn't mean they won't, doesn't mean they can't, means it is unlikely that they will end up doing so. Now, the other thing we need to bear in mind here is which Pokemon you're actually going to have on the bench. Because you need consistency Pokemon. We saw this with Incineroar GX back in Sun and Moon, and ironically enough, they've now got both Magcargo and Salazzle, so you can actually make a fairly consistent build of that right as it rotates out. And we saw it with the Naganadel GX, the first one, and that's now been fixed by the second Naganadel, which allows you to discard an Ultra Beast from your hand and draw 3 cards. Because if you're going to have a bench of entirely Psychic Pokemon, you've got to make sure that all your consistency Pokemon are Psychic. And pre-rotation, we'd be going, well, you just need 1 or 2 Tapu Lele in the early game to get your supporters and get going. And Tapu Lele's a Psychic Pokemon, so we're good. But Tapu Lele's rotated out. Now we've got Dedenne. And Dedenne, as you can plainly see, is not a Psychic Pokemon. So, once again, we have more issues. Now, we do have the Mewtwo from Unbroken Bonds, whereby when you put it from your hand onto the bench, you can grab a supporter card from the discard pile and put it on top of your deck. You'll need to draw it, but if nothing else, you can just wait till next turn to draw it. And that will give you some element of consistency, but it's not that turn-to-turn consistency we can have with stuff like Salazzle, like Pidgeotto, like Zebstrika. And none of those Pokemon are Psychic. And I'm not saying you can't play them. I'm saying if you play them, you're giving up 30 damage, and that's a huge, huge problem. Now, if you only need to be hitting 130, let's say you're playing against a Granbull deck, for instance, then this is fine. And if you're just trying to 2-hit KO 260 HP Pokemon, this is fine. But otherwise, this is not fine. Decent attack. Easy to pay the energy cost, because remember, Malamar is a Psychic Pokemon, so you're fine. But the damage is slightly low, and I worry about the lack of consistency Pokemon. Now, in terms of the GX attack here, because that's all we have other than the main attack, for 1 Psychic, 2 colourless energy, so we've got the same attack cost rolling on here, which you know I'm a fan of at this point. I don't like having to put extra energy on for the GX attack. You get to place 10 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. And if that sounds familiar, it probably should. It's Espeon GX's GX attack. And again, that shouldn't be some startling revelation. It makes sense that Deoxys and Espeon Tag Team GX would have similarities to previous Deoxys and Espeon cards. Okay, it's quite nice. Now, 10 damage counters was always a little bit awkward, because especially for evolving Pokemon, you know, think things like Inkay, you're rocking 60 HP. So you can only ever KO 1 of them with this. And then you got 4 damage counters to put somewhere else. And using your GX attack to get a KO on an evolving non-GX Pokemon is fine. It's not the best use for it. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff like Naganadel that you're just not that close to KOing. But of course it gets better. Because if you've got 3 extra energy attached, that is 6 in total, then you put 20 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are a lot happier. Because to go back to our 60 HP Pokemon example, now you're KOing 3 of them, and you've actually got a couple left over. Or you can just get a straight KO on a GX Pokemon. Something like a Dedenne, you're dropping 16 damage counters, getting a 1-hit KO, and you've still got 4 other damage counters you can place somewhere else. You can get a 1-hit KO on something like a Lycanroc. This can be fun. And now, when you're getting a 1-hit KO on a GX on the bench for 2 prizes, this is good. Of course, there is a possibility that you spread a bunch of damage around and then you just take 4, 5, 6 KOs or 6 prizes worth of KOs in one go and you just win the game. And that's what was good about Espeon GX, and therefore what's going to be good about this. You force your opponent into awkward situations. You force your opponent to go, oh, if I bench that, they can use a GX attack. And you force them to go, oh, I've got 2 half-KO'd Tag Team GXs. I have got to put my resources into healing / getting them off the field. Or if they use their GX attack, I lose the game. And I know the energy cost is awkward here, but remember we're rocking a Malamar deck. And it really is a shame double colourless energy won't be here, because when it says free extra energy, it is free extra energy, not free extra psychic. If you look at the card on the screen, there's no psychic symbol there. So it could be 1 psychic, 5 colourless energy. There's nothing to stop you playing this in a fire deck with stuff like Welder and just trying to use this as a tech, though I suspect getting 5 energy on and then having to play a psychic as well might just be a little bit awkward. So we're left with a Pokemon with a nice first attack, but it's potentially awkward and limiting in your bench and deck choices and doesn't quite do enough damage, and a GX attack which is good, and if you can get a lot of energy on, really, really good. So let's give it between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. Hopefully the audio quality of this has held up. Someone has just pulled up right next to me in the car park and they're probably giving me weird looks, but I can't see them. It's not often I want to record in my car halfway to a Pokemon tournament, but sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, it's got to be done. Now, what's got to be done is you giving me your opinion about this card in the comment section. Go nuts, but please do remember the rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where we talk about games that don't have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.